This is the COVID journey of my dad, but before we get into it, some background of him. He was a single father raising 2 girls. He did everything he could to give us a wonderful life. He made sure we were in good schools, that we kept up with our grades, he attended extracurricular activities, he volunteered in school when his schedule would allow it. He was the dad that woke up super early for work so he could be home at a decent hour in the evenings. He once drove 20 minutes back home to give me a big hug because I woke up with a nightmare. We are now 34 and 36, both happily married. One holds a PhD in a newborn, and the other has 3 kids with a high school sweetheart of 21 years. Fast forward to August 3rd, 2020, my dad turned 60. He was very fit with no underlying conditions. He rode his bike for enjoyment upwards of 25 miles a few times a week. He was not a tobacco user nor on any medication. My dad was in the hospital for 92 days fighting COVID, and this is a timeline of what he went through. These are updates that I had posted on Facebook for family and friends. August 9th, 2020, he started showing signs of COVID. August 11th, difficulty breathing set in. August 12th, it progressively got worse to the point he was gasping for air and took an ambulance to the Methodist in Dallas, where he was receiving oxygen. August 18th, not receiving enough oxygen and he moved to ICU. The nurse told us everything looks good except his breathing, so at least he only has one hurdle to overcome as of right now. August 19th, my dad is stable right now and his vitals are good. Today has been a good day for him. August 20th, my dad had a rough night and day today. This evening he felt better after sleeping well. He's still in ICU receiving 100% max oxygen from his nose and face mask. August 21st, my dad is making some improvements and we hope to stay on that track. COVID sucks and will tease you from looking like you are on the up and up to doing horrible in the span of 5 minutes. Today, my dad's oxygen mask was dropped from 15 liters, which is 100%, to 13 liters, and he's holding it. He is still receiving 100% nasal oxygen, and that will remain until he can get off the face mask entirely. August 23rd, COVID is nuts. Yesterday, we were told he is still in the realm of intubation, and today our report is this. He's doing better. He can lay on his back and keep his saturation above 90, which is really difficult for COVID patients. Once he can sit at the end of the bed and eat his breakfast, we'll transfer him to a normal room again. He's not maxed out on the nasal and mouth oxygen. They're alternating oxygen with the mask and without to see if he can tolerate. The nurse said he's doing better. August 24th, my dad is back in a dangerous spot again. He is again on 100% oxygen from the face mask and nasal. They are repeating his labs to see how his body is handling this. August 25th, just received a call. They had to intubate my dad. He's asleep now, and at least this way, he is now unknowingly stuck in jail. And when he wakes up, he'll feel much better. Every day, they will wean him from oxygen. The goal is to get him breathing on his own before taking him off a ventilator. I was told this could take a few days. August 25th, another update. My dad is in critical condition. There is nothing more the doctors can do for him. It is touch and go right now. Later on August 25th, the nurse just called and told us they are trying to get him on Ecmo therapy, but he has to meet a ton of criteria to be accepted because this is a dangerous procedure and they do not want to put stress on him. The reason they are even considering this is because he's very critical. His heart is starting to not look good either. Another update on the 25th. Thank you everyone for saying prayers. This is very, very hard for my sister and I. We had a nurse let us talk to our dad. This was the only way we could be close to him. It was the most difficult conversation I ever had. I was basically telling my dad goodbye. August 26th, he was approved for Ecmo and transported to Baylor. The Ecmo is just for his lungs at the moment. His heart is under some pressure, but it is related to the kidneys, so once he is on dialysis, they should relieve the stress of the heart. They will start to wean him on the medication he's on. He was on meds to keep his blood pressure up. They're going to keep him sedated and wake him up in the next day or so. Patients can be on Ecmo for a week to 2 months. This won't be a fast recovery. August 26th, quick update. My dad is stable and well through the start of his kidney dialysis and Ecmo therapy. They have already begun weaning him from his blood pressure meds and plan to semi-wake him up today to see if he can follow simple commands like lift your right hand. At that time, we might be able to video chat him, then they will put him back to sleep with the intention of fully waking him up tomorrow. Another report on the 26th. My dad is almost completely off of the blood pressure meds. He looks better now than he did this morning. They tried to wake him a little, and he did behave normal, like coughing and other little signs of consciousness, but it was dropping his vitals a bit, so they put him back under and will try again tomorrow. August 27th. Morning report. My dad is on the lowest setting of Ecmo. They do not want to take him off of it since they just started, but there is plenty of room for help if this turns ugly again. He is still asleep. They tried to wake him, but he bears down, which drops his heart rate. They are going to give him a different sedative that makes him a little more aware but still asleep. Another report on the 27th. Just got a call from the doctor and learned that he was dehydrated when they got him yesterday from Methodist. The doctor that suggested Ecmo at Methodist saved his life. He would have died there. Last night, Dad was fighting the ventilator a bit and his heart rate went to 0, but his body self-corrected before nurses could intervene. He is still in a medical coma, but they have hopes to wake him up tomorrow. He is currently receiving 60% oxygen through Ecmo, and they said that he is responding very well to it. August 28th, my dad had a rough night and that he keeps fighting the ventilator because it is very uncomfortable and he's unaware that he is doing it, and this causes his vitals to fluctuate a lot. They will be placing a tracheotomy today to make him more comfortable. They woke him up enough for them to tell him where he was and that they've been in contact with his daughters, and he shook his head yes that he understood. They had to get his blood pressure and heart rate stable enough before we can video chat, because it'll certainly cause his vitals to skyrocket. August 29th. Not much of an update this morning. He is still asleep and going to try again today. His kidneys are working well and the tracheotomy was placed with no complications. August 29th. He is still asleep but not as heavily medicated. All of his organs are functioning correctly, but they need his lungs to heal. He is currently on level 1 of Ecmo, lowest setting 3. He is receiving 80% oxygen and needs to be at 21% to be removed from Ecmo. He has a long road ahead of him before he can talk again, but when he is awake and strong enough, he will be able to text us again. August 30th, Renee and I got to FaceTime our dad today. He was sleeping when we talked to him, but his heart rate and blood pressure fluctuated when we talked to him, so I know he could hear us. They have him down to 70% on Ecmo and will continue to drop the oxygen levels today and into the week. He is moving in a positive direction. August 31st, we are waiting to hear from the doctor. The nurse said we had some hiccups overnight, but not setbacks. They had to adjust his blood pressure meds, and he is receiving 100% oxygen on level 1 rather than the 70% from yesterday. Today's goal is for him to open his eyes and follow simple commands. September 1st, his eyes have not opened yet. He is back up on Ecmo since his lungs responded unfavorably again to being turned last night, but blood pressure and heart rate didn't become unstable, so that is good. Infection hasn't improved or worsened, not atypical at this point. He's getting antibiotics for some type of pneumonia. They started another round of antibiotics for the pneumonia last night and his lungs were reacting favorably to it. They nasal tested him 2 times yesterday and COVID was negative, and now we're waiting on the throat swab results for extra precaution. However, from my understanding, he will still be quarantined, but they have seen patients test negative, then positive again. So right now we are focusing on his lungs to heal. September 2nd, my dad had a little thrombosis sac, that is a pus filled in his lung. They decompressed it and he got immediate relief. His breathing went from short breaths to longer. It's not dangerous and it will give him relief and allow him to fill his lungs more. They caught it on the most recent chest x-ray. He is now up with all sedation and again the goal is to get him to wake up. Right now he is currently on the highest setting Ecmo offers, which is not great, but they do not seem too concerned about it. September 3rd. Okay, scale of 1 to 10 on how he is doing on Ecmo is between 5 and 7, 10 being the worst. There are 15 sweep levels, and he is on level 5 receiving 100% oxygen. The charge nurse tested his corneal reflex yesterday and today and felt like she got a stronger response today than yesterday. They're not concerned too much about him not waking up because his brain scan is normal. They are looking at all of his levels, such as B12, to make sure he is not low anywhere. They said that it just takes time. My sister asked if we should be worried and if we should prepare ourselves for the worst, and the nurse said no, not at this time. September 6th. Dad is bleeding. They couldn't figure out from where. They did another head-to-toe scan and found his left lung has fluid in it. They are sedating him again, not as heavy as last time. He's not woken up yet. But they need him comfortable and still so they can get this under control. He may require a larger tube to be able to suction his lungs better, but they are not going to try this yet until they can get the bleeding to slow down by giving him things to clot the blood. They are hoping they can replace the tube tomorrow. They said these things happen with Ecmo and understand that it's up and down, especially with COVID. September 7th, my dad had the larger test tube put in today. His procedure went well, and they got a lot of old blood out of his left lung, which is a good sign that there may not be any continued bleeding. Number 2, they did notice a clot in his blood, which short-circuited the Ecmo machine, which took 10 minutes to repair, to which he was off support, and he stayed stable on his own relatively for his condition. Number 3, you can develop an allergy to heparin, which is the thinner he was on and recently tested positive for an allergy. They are having to analyze that closer to see if it's a true allergy. They stopped the thinner to watch the bleeding, and if they see no new bleeding, they will put back on it and are hoping he's not allergic, because the alternative to heparin is rather dangerous because you cannot just start and stop it. It takes a long time for it to leave your system if something goes wrong. 4, his fingertips and toes are a little ashy. Do not remember the exact word they used for 2 possible reasons. 1, his blood pressure medicine sends blood to the important organs, leaving things like the tips with less blood. Number 2, it could be a small clot. They do not know yet. To test this, they will bring him down from his blood pressure medicine when possible, and they will watch his extremities close to see if the color comes back. If it does not, then they will assume clotting and put him back on thinners, but have to first see if he has an allergy to the safer of the 2 options. And 5, before Dad's procedure, he did wake up enough to be asked if he could wiggle his toes, and he did. Then they had to sedate him again for the procedure. Now we're back to wanting him to wake up again. September 8th, he had a good night. They came down on blood pressure medicine. His digits are looking better, so it looks like it was due to the BP medicine he was on and not a clot. They also came down on Ecmo. Didn't get the percentage this time. Was more related to what is following next and update to ask this question. He responded this morning to wiggling his left toe and nodding his head. We will be FaceTiming him today, hoping to see him respond in some way to us. Alright, on September 8th, Dad finally responded to us. 4 minutes into talking to him, I told him I skipped a pep rally in high school and cheated in Spanish, which was the only way I graduated high school. I told him since he cannot talk back, now is a good time to tell him. I actually just wanted to get a rise out of him, and it worked. He raised his hand at me out of disgust. He is doing well and will have the Ecmo removed from his groin to his neck tomorrow, making him more comfortable and able to move around. The doctor hopes by later this week, early into next week, we will be sitting on the edge of his bed. September 10th. Dad is following all commands today and says he is in no pain. Today, he is at 21% and a sweep of 1, which is the lowest setting Ecmo offers. He won't be able to talk for a little while because of the trach, and he is still too weak to text, but we will take what we can get. September 13th, my dad is fluctuating on the Ecmo machine, but the doctors expect that. He is awake but floats in between awareness and confusion, which ICU says is typical for patients who have been there for a while. He isn't sleeping well, which aids in his confusion. He is off of kidney dialysis, and his kidneys are performing well on their own. It is just a slow recovery. September 15th, Dad should be out of the woods now. The nurses are saying they cannot say for sure because COVID is unpredictable, but that they are leaning more towards him being in the clear and now working on healing. still needing help, but he is increasingly getting better. They are trying to take him off of Ecmo, which is a dance. Take him off, see how long he can last breathing air on his own, then you put him back on when he needs help. Last night, they took him off, and I'm not sure how long he lasted. The goal is to keep his vitals up and comfortably off of Ecmo for 48 hours before they can decide to take him off completely. Yesterday, when we FaceTimed him, he didn't know who we were. Last night, when we prayed with him, he waved at me, then stuck his tongue out at me. Then, after the prayer, he was gone again and not interacting with us. The staff isn't worried about it. They call it ICU delirium. They are working on the right concoction of meds to keep him alert during the day, but to be able to sleep at night. These meds were started again yesterday morning. Today, he was interacting with the nurses and he pointed to the iPad. They asked him if he wanted to talk to us, and he shook his head yes. So we are looking forward to seeing what today brings. He's also doing well with PT. He can sit up with assistance and move his legs. His arm strength is weak, but improving with everything else. September 18th, my dad is successfully off of Ecmo and is on a very low setting on the ventilator. He needs quite a bit of PT, but every day he increasingly gets stronger. He still cannot text yet, but he is much closer to communicating with us. But for now, we will take his head nods. September 22nd. My dad tolerated being off the ventilator well yesterday, but it wore him out, so today he didn't last long and went right back on. He doesn't need ICU anymore, so he will be transferred to a long-term acute facility because he's still on the ventilator and Baylor's PT center will not accept him because of that. His body is still very weak, so he needs a lot of PT, so we're trying to get him into Kindred Hospital. September 24th, I got to see my dad today in person. The hospital he was transferred to allows visitors. I wish I could say it was a joyous occasion, but it wasn't. I mean, seeing him in itself was joyous for sure, but the poor guy is just miserable. He cannot communicate very well, and I was terrible at reading his lips. Like, awful. But I finally figured out what he needed help with, only it took me 15 minutes. I had to reassure him he is in the home stretch now. Things will continuously get better from here. September 30th, visited my dad today. Every day he gets stronger. Today they temporarily took him off of the ventilator and his breathing remained controlled and his oxygen stayed above 96 and even 100 for quite some time. We are very hopeful he will be completely off the ventilator in 3 days. October 8th, I haven't updated in a while, but my dad is completely off the ventilator. He is talking, eating, and took 10 steps forward and 10 steps back today. October 21st, my dad is off the ventilator and his trach and feeding tube have been removed. We were not thrilled with the care he was receiving at Kindred, so we had him transferred back to Baylor since he was off the ventilator. Yesterday, he was cleared for all foods, and what he chose to eat was a Dairy Queen Blizzard to celebrate. Baylor projects 4 more weeks of therapy to get him independent enough to be able to walk out those doors. November 5th, second to the last update. The next one will be celebrating his release. My dad is doing very well. He is about a month ahead of other COVID survivors as far as physical training and the milestones he has to meet in the time frame he is in. He should be released next Friday. November 13th, after 92 days in the hospital, he is out. My dad walked out of Baylor healthy and a survivor. It took a long time for him to heal, even outside of the hospital. There was one point that he could not walk from the bedroom to the living room without getting winded. And when he wanted to make his own oatmeal, he couldn't lift the bowl up into the microwave. Every day, though, he made a point to make a small goal and he achieved it. At one point, when he started living on his own again, he started with cardio, and he could not walk around a fountain all the way. And then when he walked around the fountain all the way, we celebrated. And then when he was able to walk around the fountain twice, we celebrated again. And then up to him being able to ride his bike again. Just for a couple 100 feet, we celebrated. And now, just recently, he sent us a message. He went for a bike ride and rode 17.35 miles in 1 hour and 14 minutes. which was 13.91 miles per hour. We are so happy for him and proud of how far he has come. From not being able to make a bowl of oatmeal to riding his bike upwards of 22 miles. He's an inspiration, and we are so proud to be his daughters. And we love you so much, Dad. Congratulations on your 1 year out of COVID jail. Keep up the good work.